And so we have our first disagreement. We will, of course,
Oh,
have more
yeah.
later on. The reigning NBA champion, Boston Celtics, 64-18 last year, had the differential of a 65-win team, but they will have Porzingis on the bench for the start of the season. Looks like until I'm using Christmas as a shorthand for that. So that's the first 2 months of the regular season. He played 57 games last year, and the over-under is set at 58.5.
Yeah, I'm going pretty hard under here, I would say.
Interesting.
And I realized they were a 64 win team last year, and Porzingis played the 57. I just think that as much as they may be quote unquote motivated by perceived slights after the season, number one, I just don't think they're going to need to get that high to 64 wins. I think they're going to be less healthy than they were a season ago, particularly with Porzingis. And I think they're just not going to be able to play. And I guess, maybe teams will just catch up a little bit to some of the Missoula magic as well. Like we talked about how with guys like Cornet and Hauser and Peyton Pritchard on the floor, there's still a double-digit net rating. I think they'll still be effective there. I just don't think that's going to be the case as much. I think they're not going to push as hard with the likes of Brown and Tatum this year as well. I could see Drew Holiday taking more of a step back as he already did offensively in the regular season. I think a lot of guys on this team just aren't going to shoot it quite as well. Like Derek White became one of the best shooters in the league, and I think he'll have at least a little bit of a regression there. Like I think these guys are still really good. They're right in the championship mix, but that's just a big number to say they're going to get to 59 in this day and age. I mean, I'm trying to think, other than last year's Celtics, who's the last team that got to 59 or a 59 win pace? Maybe the 2020 Bucks. I can't think of anybody else who was on. Oh, I guess the Suns, the 64 win Suns was the other one. So it's just a really hard number to get to, and particularly with championship teams other than the 2015 Warriors, you usually see a bit of a hangover. So I think these guys would be good. I think I'll probably still pick them for the number one seed in the East, but the 59 is just too big of a number, and particularly with Porzingis out, I think some of the magic in terms of like the 5-out spacing that they had, they're going to have to be a little more judicious with Horford. They're just going to be spending a lot of minutes with the likes of Tillman and Cornet out there, and it's hard to absolutely dominate that way.
I'm more conflicted on this, it appears, than you are. And there are a couple things weighing each direction that I want to say beyond what you already did and all reasonable points. One is Boston was uncommonly great last year against bad teams. They were 28-1 against the 10 worst teams, including the glass net rating. And that makes sense. They're a wonderful defensive team. They had this offensive, especially that ridiculous offensive stretch. So I think they will be really good against those teams again, but 28-1, that gives you such a foundation to just put up this kind of a number. And so you just, even if there's a slight regression to the mean, you have a couple of weird losses, those can sometimes sting. But I like that you brought up the 2015 Warriors, and that's why I'm going to go over. I'm reluctant on it, but I'm going over. Is why that 2015 Warriors team, part of the reason they put up such a big number is that they were pushed for the number one seed by the San Antonio Spurs. And like Kerr said it, numerous other people, I don't think that the top of the East is going to push them to 60 or like 64 or something like that. But I think it will push them enough that they're going to get there. And so I agree with you. There are lots of reasons. Like if memory serves, I was extremely aggressive on their over last year. I had it as my number one best bet. I am not there. I mean, also this is 58.5. That was 53.5. If it was 53.5, it would again be my best bet. But I am going to go over just because I think this team is really, really good. And I think that they can beat the bad teams. And you're right that they're, especially with Porzingis established as being out, their age and injury-related risks, but their star players have been remarkably durable. And I'm not going to bet against Tatum and Brown being healthy until we've seen it happen.
Yeah, I think it's more just that they're going to kind of take it easier with those guys and give them more days off. I also don't think that they're like going to be that concerned about getting the number one seed. Maybe they would be. I actually, if I were them, I'd probably be more concerned about making sure I had home court advantage over whoever came out of the West than necessarily getting it in the East if that's how things played out. But I think there is some risk here. Like, I'm not saying this is like, going to be one of my best bets. I don't think, I probably, as I say it right now, I'll have to really get into the weeds more when I do the pot on them. But, I probably would just bet 56, 57, something like that. I just don't think in this age that it's wise to bet on any team to be that much higher than that, even though they statistically were one of the best teams of all time a year ago in the regular season. I think the way it could go wrong is, hey, Joe Mazzulla and these guys just are an automatic win machine in the regular season, and that 28-1 stat that you cited is maybe a reason for that. But I think there's just generally regression of the mean, gravity that happens to a team like that with the number being that high.
And so we have our first disagreement. We will, of course,
have more
later on.